clearly passive recovery is where the market is going and really been getting a lot of uptake from people that are leading the market. The other thing that market leaders are really focusing on right now is innovative ways to get to THC isolate.
Your throughput was your main constraint in regards to primary extraction, but now success is often measured by how many kilograms of isolate that people can produce or how much they're able to get out the door. And so we're seeing a shift in focus towards isolation capacity being the most important metric.
And usually the first step there is centrifuges, maybe crystallizing with using the centrifugal force to increase the pressure and get that crude to crystallize.
Yeah, often people are, outputting their crude into either miners or Pyrex or jars, and what they're trying to do is crystallize and isolate the THCA that way, but you're limited in scale and capacity to do that.
With those kind of solvent recovery rates up to 10 pounds a minute, it's just a no-brainer switching to a passive recovery system. But really the next thing that becomes the limitation is the post-processing. So how are people, a lot of time doing their post-processing now to get to like an isolate and a high terpene fraction?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're, really churning out crude, that's good, but ultimately you need to process it before it can make its way out the door as a retail-ready product. And so scaling up your THCA isolation capacity and rate is very important, because then you can make all your downstream products at the rate that you can sell them ideally.
What most high-performance teams are doing now is they're focusing on more extraction as like an ingredients manufacturing process, and then that separates the extraction part of their manufacturing from the actual formulation and packaging aspects. That increases the performance of the whole of the system as a whole.
You end up with a lot of efficiencies and kind of a lower risk processing regimen when you do ingredient-based manufacturing, because all of a sudden you have your outputs from your extraction system are ingredients that can be recombined by formulators to be able to produce whatever product you want, as opposed to the current state of the industry in a lot of cases where you have your head extractor trying to produce a specific product out of biomass that he or she has little control over.
And so I think a lot of extractors have figured this out, that they can achieve higher performance by going to isolate and high terpene extract. What are some of the techniques that people are using to, the rudimentary kind of entry-level techniques that people are using to get that process done?
And crystallization is achievable in a bunch of different ways. I think what a lot of folks are doing is they are crystallizing in Pyrex or diamond miners, and then they're separating the HTE pretty manually by centrifuging it or pouring it off and doing recrystallizations. And that works pretty well, especially for smaller scale operations. But really, when you try to industrialize, you need to be producing isolate en masse. You need to be doing 10 to 20 kilogram batches, and so you are typically scaling up to an industrial crystallization solution.
So taking the approach where you really look at THC and terpenes as the two kind of core ingredients for all products is becoming really popular, and especially for high performance cannabis extractors. Why do you think that is?
Well, you just have control over, the textures and the value of the products that you're creating, and also you can kind of maximize the value stream, right? So THCA is not unique to a high quality cannabis. You can get it from lower quality biomass, and then you can often, stretch the value of your HTE to many more SKUs, many more units, by recombining ingredients.
Right. You can also take a little bit more of like a just-in-time manufacturing approach, can't you?
Back in the day, it was very challenging if somebody wanted shatter, and then somebody wanted diamonds and sauce, somebody wanted pure isolate. And so if you have, THCA and HTE on the shelf, you can recombine them to make really any product that you want, depending on what what sales are doing well, as opposed to trying to formulate it at the onset and then having it in storage as those final product forms.
So in one practice might be like trying to source the biomass that will produce the product that is in demand and going straight from biomass to product, being option A. Option B would be sourcing all the biomass, running all the biomass that you can get your hands on, getting everything right to isolate. And then the HTE fraction, some of it you preserve as a really high quality terpene fraction that can be used in multiple different products, from let's say vape cartridges to reconstituting dabbable, even caviar. And then the second HTE fraction from some lower quality biomass might actually get reprocessed into just THC, and the value of the actual terpenes might be very little, and you just end up turning it into distillate, but you maximize how much THC comes out of that HTE. And then all of those three ingredients, you've got high quality HTE, distillate, and THC isolate. You can recombine those as you need them for whatever the market's demanding.
It used to be that if you wanted to make a really stable shatter, you would go speak to the grower and ask him to, chop down the crop early. And that's just not really a functional process. Right now, you've got, irregardless of the biomass coming in, you can pull out the THCA. If it's a nice terpene fraction, you can designate it for your higher value goods. And then you have your operators, which with a much simpler job. They're just focused on keeping the extractor running as fast as possible. And then you have the formulators really deciding what's going out the door.
And the extractor is always producing the same exact product.
Yeah.
They're producing isolate and HTE every single extraction.
Yeah.
There's no exceptions.
Yeah, exactly.
The other thing that's really cool about that is that you can be really opportunistic when it comes to procurement of the biomass.
Yeah, you can essentially buy, when there's a biomass production glut, you can buy really inexpensive biomass. And then also, on the other side of it, if you have a whole bunch of THCA in storage and the prices are increasing, well, you can take advantage of that as well.
So this video is really for people that are seeking market leadership type of approach to processes like this. So that's the point where you really want to be looking at things like purpose-built crystallization reaction vessels, or a series of reaction vessels. And we actually have some vessels like that here. So let's go check it out.